Now, is that how I'd expect a guy to be asking a babe for it? No. I think even though there's nothing wrong with being straightforward, I do believe that there are boundaries and limitations to where you being too blunt can actually start working against you. This being one of those instances, because
the royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who likes his women the same exact way he likes his yogurt. He is also a man who may include jumping to conclusions to his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. And I am here to do a bunch of clarification because I feel like we're at the point where some things that may seem normal might be considered abnormal, and some other things that may be considered abnormal are a little bit more normal. And someone needs to make sense of what makes things normal or abnormal in these situations, and that is where I come in. And hopefully, by the end of the episode, by the time I explain through everything, be it me ranting about something or something revolving around the main topic, at least it'll make some sense to some people, so much so they can even decide whether they would go one way or the other. And, of course, that means that some people may agree with me, some may disagree, but all in all, should you like it, should you not like it, should you have a different form of feedback, or should you want to suggest a potential topic and or guest that I should have on the podcast, then the DMs are always open, the social media is usually in the description, and I would be more than happy to attend to it. But just in case you feel like the description is too much work, or you don't feel like checking the description, maybe you're listening from your TV, or maybe you just don't feel like checking it out, then you can obviously listen all the way till the end, because I usually mention the social media there. But all in all, a massive thank you to you who is listening, and I do hope that you listen all the way until the end. Now, I don't want to take too much time on pleasantries and just jump straight into what it is that I had planned for today. So I want to kick things off by talking about something that had been trending on a certain part of TikTok, and I just so happened to see it because a certain quote-unquote choice feminist was talking about it. Now, this is a lady that I've covered before, meaning that I've watched her content once or twice on TikTok, so it just seemed right that, it would recommend her to me again. But the contents of what it was that she was saying was in regards to something called the voice memo, or someone that they refer to as the voice memo guy. And she was giving her thoughts on it, which I will discuss in next episode because I kind of needed to understand the context, because she was busy talking about how purity and hookup culture are a part of the patriarchy, which seems wild, considering that hookup culture is as a result of feminism more than it is whatever it is that y'all look at as the patriarchy. But before I can get into that, let me first let the voice memo play, because this voice memo was one that was posted on TikTok, and it was posted by a woman who had gotten it from a friend of hers who had gone on a date with a guy. Now, the contents of it did seem particularly controversial because people are discussing whether what he did was good or bad, or whether he's a red flag or not. So I want to let the clip play, then give my thoughts on it. So without further ado,
I had a good time tonight. Definitely think you are lovely. However, I would love to, if we're going to go to your place on Thursday, I am looking to have that physical intimacy to see if, I am sexually compatible with you. So, if I'm going to come over, I would be hoping to, hook up, have sex, have a good time, have, that romantic spark and that physical spark there for my own sake, because it's hard for me to continue dating someone and seeing them if I don't know if I'm sexually compatible. So I know you said I don't know about that, so I guess my thing is what would be the point of me coming over then if we're not gonna hook up and cuddle and be intimate with each other? And if that's what you don't want, that's fine, but I think we should just end it here then, respectfully, just because first date, that's fine. You want to get to know each other, I'm all about that. But I am looking to have that physical aspect there, and I don't want to continue seeing someone if I don't know if that's good, if that's not there or not. So up to you. Let me know. I'm happy to, if you do want me to come over, I'm happy to do so. Would love to have a good time and we can have some wine, hang out, and chill. But if you're not trying to hook up, then like I think we should just go our separate ways. Let me know.
Okay. This was a very interesting clip. Partially because of what the guy said, but also partially because of the fact that this apparently ticked off so many women that it ended up trending because a ton of women were doing videos on how bad this is. And look, like, I'm not saying that the women are wrong, it's just I feel like a lot of what was being talked about was the whole bit where they were busy saying that, oh, this is quote unquote weaponized consent, and how, oh, you're assuming that just because this is the case and this is how it should be done. But overall, I feel like a lot of the comments and a lot of the thoughts around this entire clip were mostly in favor of how it's supposedly bad, or at least the guy sounds like a red flag because of how he basically articulated himself and what he said, and it wasn't good, and there's all of these implications that he's trying to put in, and how bad of a person that they probably are. And then there was the other side that was like, you know what, this is straightforward and it's good. Like, this was the straightforward that we needed. At least he stated his intentions early. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of in the middle because there's bits on either side that I can definitely pick up on. And to be quite frank, I feel like the whole thing where they're talking about weaponized consent is a bit of a stretch. I don't want to get into the whole consent thing because consent in and of itself, like I've said many times on this podcast, is a very volatile thing. There's people that are adding layers and layers and layers to it, yet for the most part, it's the individual ability to say yes or no whenever it comes to a sexual interaction. So, to be honest, I don't feel like there's really much of a reason for me to go in to start trying to decipher whether this should be a no or a yes, or whether the consent is implied or not. Like, I'm not going to get into that. I feel like it's just not really my place to do so, especially considering that we do not know much more of the contents of how that first date went. But that aside, now let me get into my actual thoughts, of which honestly I feel like the guy was straightforward about what he wanted, and if anything, that was the simplest yes or no situation that I've probably heard of. Maybe one of the simplest, not necessarily the simplest, but one of the simplest. Because this guy was very straight up. He was like, hey, look, let's do the second date. If we're doing it at your place, which implies that they might have had the discussion about doing the second date at one of their houses, preferably hers, then there was this implication that, okay, if we're going to do it at your place, which was already implied, then let's, also get physically intimate, because, I would want to figure out if you're sexually compatible. Now, is that how I'd expect a guy to be asking a babe for it? No. I think even though there's nothing wrong with being straightforward, I do believe that there are boundaries and limitations to where you being too blunt can actually start working against you. This being one of those instances, because when you're looking at a situation where this babe has just had a date with you, it's the first date, you guys were just getting to know each other, and you're straight up talking about, oh yeah, let's do it at your place and then we shag after. Like, there's nowhere where there's anything wrong with that, because at least he stated his intentions, but you don't just bring it like that. It's like a babe saying, oh, so I love the fact that we had our first date, but now I hope for the next couple of dates I will be doing, you'll be taking me someplace fancy and you pay for it because I want to make sure that we're financially compatible. Like, that would just sound weird, to be honest. And just the same way that would sound weird, that would also sound weird if you're a guy and you're saying for the second date, let's do it at your place and then we can lay some pipe after. Like, that just doesn't sound all that good or all that appealing. And that's where the limitation of being blunt comes in. Fine, yes, you're blunt about what it is that you want, and there's nothing wrong with being forward, and it is good that you are forward. The problem is, when it comes to communication, it's partially about what it is that you say, but it's also, and very majorly, about how you say it. So when you're saying this, then of course it's going to be taken badly because it is too fucking blunt. And honestly, I wouldn't expect a guy to be asking for such or asking in this way, not unless if he is very particular about the fact that he just wants to lay pipe and possibly move on. Alright, This guy legit just sounds like he just wants to fucking bounce. And even though that's not the case, the guy does not sound like he is genuinely romantically interested in this woman, because he seems like he's just very into the fact that on the second date he should come to her place and then lay pipe after they've done all the cooking and eating and being all nice with each other. So to be honest, while I don't see anything too bad about it, I do feel like this guy was being a little too straightforward and his intentions probably aren't the same as hers, which is why I can understand the negativity that such a woman would probably have, because it's like this guy just wants to shag. But the whole weaponized consent thing BS that I'm seeing a lot of women saying on TikTok, I personally can't agree to it, just because it doesn't really sound like that's the case. Although granted, maybe I don't understand weaponized consent. But either way, because I feel like this isn't really my cup of tea, so I won't really try it, let me leave it at that and move on to our main topic of this episode. And this one is an interesting one because it revolves around single mothers, or should I say single moms. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not the guy that's gonna come and be like, oh, I think you guys should be dating single moms, especially if you're a single guy. Like, y'all know it's not like I'm gonna be the guy that's telling you that. But considering that, especially in Dating Rap 2025, the episode that I did, I think it was end of last year, if not early this year, I did talk about how there's been more of an uptick in people talking about dating single moms and being in relationships or being in a relationship with a single mom, which did at least prove that there is a bit of an uptick in guys dating single moms. So even though it's not something that I would highly recommend for a lot of single guys, especially when they're young, people are doing it, so I might as well look into it. Then I also stumbled across this particularly interesting Reddit post where a guy had titled it and said that most single mothers are dating for financial gain, which did pique my interest for a bit, and I did want to look into it. So I am going to read what it is that the person who posted it said, look at a few comments here and there, then give my thoughts on it. So the guy says, and I quote, "No disrespect and no hate at all towards single mothers, but I've noticed a certain pattern which I don't think I can put myself in such a complicated situation. Looking back, I've dealt with single moms, mostly girls in their 20s, I'm in my late 20s by the way, and the script ends up being the same. I dated one and she had a stable job and I have one too. Combined, we'd make close to 600k per month, though I was earning higher. That's a decent amount of money to live large in Nairobi, especially if you have a partner who's willing to build a future with you. Through our dating phase, she'd complain about how she's used up money on family and all, and she doesn't have money, and as a man in the relationship, I'd rush to either the Safaricom app or my banking apps and transfer money to her account. It somehow became a common thing. Every time she wants to do something, she can't do without me chipping in. Oh, she wants to furnish the house, and when talking, she talks about how she's less 15 to 20k. I'd be like, let me send. And that was a rookie mistake. And don't hate me, but I'll admit something. She was living with a sister and it reached a point where the sister was to join uni. Now, she was overly stressed about who'll be taking care of the kid when she gets dropped from school. Being the punk I was, I told her to look for a house girl and I'll be paying. And I'd pay her 10k every single month. My awakening point was when she started doing projects on her own and I was sidelined and not updated about anything until I found out on my own. Ever been with someone who's simply saving up massive to buy land or build or something, this, that and the other? On my end, I have land I had bought and I have a family land as well. So one day I sat down and I was like, if this woman is really into me and willing to spend the rest of my life with me as she claims, why is she doing all these projects on her own? Why would she go an extra mile to buy me land to build her house? Maybe it was for her security or something, but still it didn't make sense and I couldn't understand why I wasn't updated. Anyways, the relationship ended, but I had done loads of dumb financial mistakes. I don't think I'll ever put myself in such situations again. I've taken good care of myself, never impregnated anyone, so I think it's safe to say I'll only settle with someone who's like me. End quote. Okay, this is a particularly long post. And let's be real, when you think of the fact that this guy was spending as much money as he's talking about, this guy must have spent quite a bit of cash on this babe. Like, that's actually quite a bit. But I'm not here to discuss how much money is spent. I'm here to look at the entire situation and see if what he's saying is the truth. But before I can get into any of that, let me first get into some of the comments, then I can give my thoughts on it. So the first one read, and I quote, "I'm a single mother. I don't rely on anyone for money." End quote. And I think from this particular comment, there were other women that were commenting and saying that this was a generalization about single mothers wanting to date only for financial gain. And I can totally get it. Although, with that said, there are a lot of single moms that are looking for someone to take care of them and their kid. So I can understand why a lot of guys would look at it as these women are just trying to date you for financial gain. But with that said, let me move on to the next comment, which said, and I quote, "Even the non-single mothers, the story is still the same. I can't be mad anymore about the fact that it's important to be selfish and people plan themselves so their life goes exactly as it should. And people are a means to an end to accomplish the vision. I've also done the taking care of someone with a future in mind, but they were also thinking of themselves while I was thinking selflessly." End quote. And to this person, if you are listening, sorry. I know what it's like when you try to give selflessly, especially as a guy. And I'm not saying that women don't give selflessly. It's just normally whenever it comes to a lot of the giving, especially the tangible giving, you will see that guys will give and give and give. And then at some point, if the babe just gets tired of the relationship or doesn't want the guy anymore, they could just basically drop the guy and move on, and they might probably be okay. But the guy kind of has to nurse his own wounds because the guy was just giving and giving and giving. Or the guy ends up in a back foot or something like that. So I can totally understand how the guy can feel like that and believe that everyone is selfish and looking towards their own personal gain. But now, on to the next comment, which says, and I quote, "Then there are men who go after single mothers who are doing well in life and suck every penny from them." End quote. And these ones do exist. I don't hear about them as much, but they do exist. Do I think that there are many of them? No. I feel like this is more of a nuanced case. And I think just the fact that we've had a few cases here and there doesn't necessarily mean that there's too many guys who do that. But with that said, let me just read the last comment and I can get into my thoughts on it, which says, and I quote, "Let me just say that you were in love and you didn't know better." End quote. Okay. Yes, this I'd probably agree, although dude is in his late 20s, I feel like he probably could have, but I'm not gonna say he didn't know better. He probably did. It's just that the guy was in his feels. Personally speaking, I feel like that's more of the truth as opposed to knowing or not knowing better. I feel like dude knew that it's not the best option. It's just that he was probably willing to stake the odds on love and it didn't turn out the way he wanted it to. Just saying. But anyways, with that said, let me get into my thoughts on it. So first of all, I was wondering just how much money this guy must have spent. And fortunately, someone in the comments had asked, and the guy said that he spent roughly 300,000 to 500,000 bob on this babe. And honestly, that was actually quite a bit of money. Whichever way you look at it, whether you want to convert it to dollars or pounds, whether you want to convert it to Zimbabwean currency, like at the end of the day, this guy used a good chunk of change on this babe. And y'all are gonna have to allow me to sound like the person that likes to turn everything into a bag of cement and say that 500k can get him good land somewhere else. 500k he could have started a business. 500k he could have bought himself a car. That's a lot of money. Anyways, you live and you learn, and if anything, over the time of your life, you realize that there's some lessons that you're going to learn, and they're going to cost you quite a bit. For dude, it seemed like it cost him 300 to 500 G's for him to learn. But anyways, that one aside, like I said, I wasn't here to discuss the money per se. But when you look at a situation like this, it's not uncommon, but it's also not unique either. And I say this because there's a lot of single moms that are dating for the sake of financial stability alongside other things, if not just for financial stability. So it's not like this is a completely foreign thing for a lot of guys to go through. And, maybe there's a ton of guys who haven't experienced it, but there's also a couple of guys that have experienced it maybe once or twice. But the thing is, you kind of have to recognize that this isn't something that is completely void of happening to a lot of people, even though it's not a single mom. There's a lot of babes that do the same exact thing. But considering that this was a post in relation to single moms, I will keep it related to single moms, and I will say this. Considering his situation, I feel like a lot of things were expected, and to be quite honest, if you are dating a single mom, there are a couple of things that you do need to understand. And this goes even beyond the money, because I feel like there's a lot to dating a single mom that a lot of guys don't really know. And I'm not saying this because I'm like an expert at it, but for the most part, I do believe that there are some things that you need to know for sure. First off, you're dating more than one person, so you need to adjust to that. And I don't mean this in the sense of you're dating both the mother and the child, but I mean that you're dating a mother, or at least a person, or, a woman who has the added responsibility of taking care of a child. That is a very, very important thing. I think a lot of people who think about dating a single mom and they're like, oh, that's not too much of an issue, usually assume that, oh, you're just dating someone that's taking care of a kid. The kind of bond that a mother has to their child is incredibly strong. And that means that even when it comes to dating, there's going to be some differences as opposed to dating a babe who's childless and single. So you need to know that for a fact. Then secondly, because of that, you're not the first priority. And if you are, there's very likely a problem. Okay? So the fact that I was talking about that bond, that special connection between mother and child, there will always be that first priority, which is the child. And you need to be comfortable with it as a guy. Okay? If you don't have any kids of your own, it might seem a bit foreign. It might seem a bit excessive in some instances, but you need to become accustomed to the fact that you are not going to be the first priority. If you are comfortable with that, then cool. If you are the first priority and they don't seem like they care that much about the kid, I would say that that's a massive issue that you need to look into. So not unless if that kid is being well taken care of, there's a very good chance that that woman might be neglecting their kid, and that sounds like a toxic person that I wouldn't want to even potentially have kids with. But anyways, that's just me, and I could be wrong about that. But the other thing that you do need to understand is it's not going to be easy whether you're looking at it socially or personally, and you could even throw in financially if you want to add an extra twist in it. Now, the financially bit, you guys have already heard the story, and of course, for anyone that has probably dealt with someone or knows someone who has kids, you know that they are not cheap at all, and there's expenses on expenses. So I feel like that one is kind of par for the course. But socially, there's going to be quite the hit that you'll take as a guy, because let's be quite honest, you're dating a single mom, and it's not like single moms are considered to have the best social reputation. Not because they're hoes or anything, but just because they're single moms. And as such, there's probably going to be a lot of the shit talk that you might get from guys or just from friends in general. There's also the kind of shit talk that you'll get if it doesn't work out. So you kind of have to take that risk as a dude, where it's like, you still tried to go for a single mom and it still didn't work out for you. Then, of course, on a personal level, there's obviously that bit where you're dating a single mom, so you kind of have to consider whether you're trying to have some sort of a relationship with the kid. Not necessarily in like the first couple of dates or anything, but just generally over time. So, of course, if you're into that kind of thing, or if you are okay with it, then it's perfectly fine. If you're not, then you probably shouldn't be dating a single mom. And, once you have those understood, then maybe you can try dating the single mom and, see how that kind of works out. And if it does seem like something that you are going to do and you already understand those, I'll at least try to give you a couple of things to figure out as you go to date her, just for your own safety as a single guy, okay? So first of all, get to know the history and or relationship with the baby daddy and see how it's going. If they have an existing relationship, or if they have an existing sort of co-parenting relationship, how does that work out? Are they good friends? Are they cordial with each other? Do they hate each other? Do they always have beef and drama with each other? Like, those are things to look out for. Is the father in the kid's life And of course, what kind of relationship did they have with this babe before the kid? Or even what other guys has she dated after she had the kid? Because those can tell you if this babe has a thing for toxic guys, or if she looks for toxicity, or if maybe she still has a thing for the ex. Some of these guys usually dip after they hear that the babe is pregnant, but the babe still retains feelings for dude. So if the guy comes back, she could end up having a thing with a guy on the side. Some of these people still have, even though they say they're co-parenting and, they already have their own relationships, some of them still have a thing with each other on the low because the kind of bond that's created when two people make a kid can be particularly strong. So, of course, that is something that I would want someone to look into if they do look at dating a babe who's a single mom. Then also, you also have to consider her financial situation. Is it that she's broke? Is she able to hold her own? Is she moving from paycheck to paycheck? Those are things that you don't necessarily need to ask on the first date, but just learn over time. If the babe seems to lean on you a lot for financial shit, then there's a chance that she might be trying to date you because she wants the financial gain. She wants the financial stability. At which, now that complicates things because you don't know if she loves you for you or for the fact that you're putting money down. So you should always look at that. If she's doing pretty well for herself, then, there's a pretty good chance that she might not want you for the financial stability. And that's a good thing, because at least it makes stuff easier than, whatever it is that you guys seem to be interested in each other for. You can kind of do it. Then also, you need to know her goal or goals of dating you. Is she dating you with the intention of starting a family or continuing one or completing one? Is she dating you because she's in love with you and she wants to have a relationship? Is she dating you because she wants someone that can help her take care of the kid? Is she dating you because she just wants dick? Like, there's so many different reasons why someone can date, and understanding the goal or goals is very, very important so that you can understand if you need to invest a little bit more emotionally, if you're required to invest a lot financially, or if you're just in it for the fun of it, or if you're in it because you two do genuinely care about each other romantically. And with all of that said, while I can't tell you to date or not date a single mom, at the end of the day, I do feel like some of those are guidelines and things to understand or know that would be particularly important for you. So with all of that said, let me just conclude by saying that while public advice, which is usually for a single person not to date a single mom, may be sound and maybe you shouldn't, the choice of course is always going to be yours. Should you choose to date a single mom, then beware of the realities and costs to it. Should you not choose to date a single mom, then at least have your reasons pretty down solid. Otherwise, you might end up dating a single mom and you're like, oh, she's so beautiful and I love her so much, only because either you're pussy whipped or you're just very, very smitten with her looks. But either way, considering that I don't have much experience with dating single moms, maybe I could be wrong, I could be chatting a bunch of bullshit, but either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open on IG. It is at the Breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the Breaktime Podcast. On X, it is at BagakaTheD. And on Bluesky, it is at the BreaktimePod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.